Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The Croatian prospect Filip Hrgovic has announced himself to the heavyweight division, advancing to 6-0 after knocking out Amir Mansour in their fight in Zagreb, Croatia. Hrgovic completely dominated this fight. He ended up dropping Mansour in the third round midway through it, and then he stopped him before the bell of the third. So let's quickly go through the action. Hrgovic, he was managing the range well from the outset, boxing from range. He wasn't letting Mansour get anywhere near him. Clearly the faster of the two. The footwork was better. He was landing nice jabs in round one, a few nice right hands. And from the outset, he did look like he was a cut above Mansour. He was using his natural advantages. He had the height advantage by about 5 inches and the reach similar. Hrgovic, he stepped it up in the second round a bit, starting to land with a bit more regularity. The right hands were coming in. It was clearly starting to trouble Mansour. In the third, Hrgovic, from range, he kept tagging Mansour pretty much at will. And halfway through the round, he ended up rocking Mansour with a left hook. It scrambled Mansour's senses. It made his legs do a bit of a dance. And then he took a knee as a result. And for the rest of the round, Hrgovic was on him, throwing heavy leather. And eventually, it sort of caught up with him. And that was despite Mansour. By this stage, he looked a bit desperate. He was going for broke, throwing wild and desperate punches. But it did catch up with the American prior to the bell. He went down a few seconds out from the bell from a cuffing shot, but it was more the accumulation from the round. And it looked like he might be able to get up, but he didn't. And he was counted out. So in terms of this performance, it was a very impressive performance by Filip Hrgovic. A lot of people had been potentially questioning his power. Would he be able to hurt someone like Amir Mansour, who was actually pretty rugged and nuggety? And indeed, he was able to hurt Mansour. Overall, it was an impressive performance. He managed the range well, as I said. His skills were pretty silky, and he used his advantages very well. Mansour, meanwhile, he looked his age. He looked bereft of ideas on how to close the distance effectively. He was falling short the vast majority of the time with his work. I'm not even really sure if he landed anything of note. The footwork, it wasn't great, and he looked to have lost a step judging from his earlier performances. But given he's 46 years old, it's not exactly entirely surprising. But Hrgovic, from start to finish, he dominated Mansour. And this is the really exciting part of it. He made Mansour look terrible. He just dominated him. And for the rest of the division, this is a statement because Filip Hrgovic, good amateur pedigree, over 100 fights, Olympic bronze medalist. He's been fighting relatively decent competition since he turned pro, and obviously Mansour in his 6th fight. That's quite the statement, and he knocked him out, completely dominated him. So I think as a result of this, we'll probably see Hrgovic enter the tail end of one of the sanctioning body's rankings at some point in the next couple of months. He really is a prospect to watch. One of 3 or 4 that are coming through that are probably going to be sort of perennial top 10 contenders for the next, 5 or 6 years. And on the strength of that performance, Filip Hrgovic is going to make some more statements as he goes forward with his pro career. In terms of the what next, obviously he's taken on Mansour, and to Mansour, in fairness to him, it was on 3 weeks' notice, but he was in shape, and we know that Mansour has been struggling to get meaningful fights in the last, 2 or 3 years. He's been struggling to get them. No one seems to want to get in there because he's got power, but obviously he would have got paid pretty well, you would think, for taking this at short notice. Otherwise, he wouldn't have bothered. But, I would say for Mansour, you'd have to ask yourself, is he done now at contender level? At the very least, he's sort of probably dropping down to gatekeeper level, and perhaps he was already there, but he hasn't been able to get the work recently for us to really find out. But in terms of Hrgovic, I was very impressed. I think we're going to see a lot more from this guy. 26 years old, 6'6". There had been some questions about his power, but he did show that he could, land on Mansour, use his height and reach, use those natural advantages, and that he hits hard. So I think, there's big things to come from Filip Hrgovic, and it's a name you are going to hear again. If you saw it, what did you make of it? Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.